Hi, guys. It's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. So, I have to tell you, I'm not really here. I recorded this so that you guys could still have your stream at 4:30, but I really did have plans. So, I really did. I can't kind of do a stream today, and it took me forever to get this together. So, my timeline is razor sharp right now. So, I gotta hurry up and get this through. And pray my family hits the button at 4:30. That's the best I can do, right? I think they will, right? They- They're gonna hit the button at 4:30 and stop the stream when it's over, right? I can trust them. So this was an 8-hour-ish trial. It could have been 12, it could have been 4. I don't remember. It was way over 4. I cut it down the best I could to 2 hours so that we could have a normal stream. So there's lots of parts cut out. Um, but I can put it on Patreon if you want, except this is a murder trial with a pro se. Normally, when we have pro ses, they get in big trouble because of their freaking mouth. Well, this is the exact opposite. This is a murder trial with a pro se who refuses to speak at all until he does. So don't worry. Don't worry. He does speak. You will get to hear him speak. But first, we have to go through a murder trial. He is on trial for murder. And we're going to see things that we don't often get to see. But remember, I cut it up to just so that you guys can get the good parts ish. And if you want to see the whole thing, I'll throw it on my Patreon. It's not a big deal. So here we go. I think that the audio is good. I try to do the best I could with it.
The car towed to a safer area. What I did is I actually found a bullet hole in the front.
The complete screen of yellowness goes away soon. I don't know what was going on with their cameras, but it'll go away.
Driver's side seat bottom, so the seat that, or the part of the seat that you physically sit on. And what I did is I took a flight path rod and I inserted it into the bullet hole. And what this is doing is it's showing the overall directionality that this bullet was traveling when it struck the front driver's side seat.
Okay, so this flight path rod. Excuse me. What's your training on that specifically? As far as, I mean, just jab this thing in somewhere and just say this looks like the flight path rod, the flight of the bullet, or how do you determine that's the actual path of the projectile?
So this is additional training that I had to go through. So I have been through 2 separate shooting incident reconstruction classes and have gotten certifications from classes. And I have examined well over probably 1,000 bullet holes and had several opportunities for experience. So these flight path rods essentially are metal rods, metal sticks, and what you do is you insert them along the flight path. So you don't just shove it into a seat, for example, you have to follow that path. So what I did is I was able to kind of look at the overall seat, meaning above the seat, below the seat, kind of see where different defects within the seat were located. And I was able to insert this rod and line them up. So with all of that combined in the placement of this rod, you can see where that bullet was traveling when it struck the seat.
Okay. And what was the direction of that bullet? The rod.
Correct. So the directionality of this was passenger side to driver side. So it came from the passenger side to driver side. It was slightly front to back, meaning it originated kind of towards the front of the vehicle, traveling a little bit towards the back of the vehicle. And it was also downward.
So this front to back, hypothetically speaking, it would be more, say if someone was holding a gun more towards front of the glove box to the front, shooting back this direction, like
correct.
Right hand or something.
Correct. And it's an ever so slight angle difference, but that's just how we have to describe it in our report writing.
Okay. with that, State Exhibit 10 to the jury.
Please.
I think this is not too much different. State Exhibit 11, what's that?
This is the same flight path rod in the same seat. What I did is I just kind of took a little bit more of a closer up photo of it. So the one we discussed earlier was a little further away, and this one is just closer up.
Looking at it, again, is it a little bit more clear to you, or you can see the angle you were talking about in this picture?
Correct. So this is also just a different angle, showing that it's going from passenger side to driver side, slightly front to back and downward.
I like to call this copy of State Exhibit 11.
Yes, sir.
This is labeled State Exhibit 12. Tell us a little bit about things going on.
It appears this is a photo.
And if that sounded weird, it is. He said he wanted to publish something to the jury, and nobody asked him if he had any objections because they tried and tried.
Photo that I took before I inserted, the flight path rod into the defect in the seat. What this is showing is where that bullet defect is located, kind of in conjunction where the blood pooling is in the seat, so where the blood is located on the seat. And you can kind of see some other kind of just items on the seat as well. You see some change, a key, and then a NyQuil medication pack.
So there's also, it looks like some kind of brown material, organic material or something there on the seat.
That is correct. So around the bullet defect, I noted that there appeared to be tobacco, like from the inside of a cigarette, but it was just the loose tobacco around the bullet defect.
Did you find a cigarette pack or anything like that in that part of that seat?
I did on the driver's side floorboard, so right underneath the front driver's seat. I found a Newport cigarette pack, and when I had kind of picked it up, this is after I photographed it, to examine it closer, you could see a bullet defect through the Newport cigarette pack. So what that is kind of indicative of, or looking at, again, the totality of the circumstances, is that the bullet that traveled into that seat passed through that cigarette pack on its way into the seat and scattered the tobacco.
Good. I'd like to pull the copies of State Exhibit 12.
Yes, sir.
And for those of you who just logged on and asked, what is this? It's a murder trial from a pro se guy who refuses to speak.
This is State Exhibit 13. What is going on here in this picture?
Yes, this is live. And yes, this is recorded. And yes, this is recorded.
So this foam, this, let's call it, I guess, floorboard.
Mm-hmm.
What would that be indicative of? Where that foam came from?
That would be indicative of a bullet passing through the foam of the seat. And these foam pieces that we see it quite often in shooting incident reconstruction when a projectile passes through anything with foam. The foam pieces will be on the exit side, meaning essentially the bullet traveled from on top of the seat to underneath the seat because the foam pieces are underneath the seat.
So let's go to State Exhibit 14. Tell us what
You gonna
this is.
want a bit of an evidence, right? All right. This is 14 through 20. Mr. Miles,
This is him. This is what happened the last time. I just wanted to make sure I get it. This is what happened when he tries to introduce evidence.
Do you have any objection to the authentication or otherwise for these exhibits being admitted, 14 through 20, which have previously been shown to you? The record reflect that Mr. Miles has not made an objection to exhibits 14 through 20 or their authentication. Go ahead, Mr. Larson.
All right, this State's Exhibit 14. Tell us what this is.
This is a mid-range photograph I took. So what this is documenting is kind of towards the middle of the photo. You can see the projectile that is located right where the pavement of that shoulder stops and the grassy shoulder begins. And again, this is just a mid-range photograph documenting where it's located.
Okay, is that, I understand it's almost camouflage there. There's a looks kind of a half and half picture of the road. On
Correct.
The side, the right side, then you've got grass and stuff to the left. Is that a pipe up there? That cigarette butt? That
appears to be a cigarette butt up there. Below the cigarette butt, again, it is kind of camouflaged. It's right where the pavement stops and the grass begins.
That's sort of a grass color.
It is brass. Projectile, yes. Correct. Correct. So this is what we're looking at in this photograph is what would be the tip of the projectile or the rounded portion of the projectile. And we are looking down on top of it. Correct.
Oh, Scott is State's.
Go ahead.
And we see there's like a ruler, an L-shaped ruler or something there. What's the purpose of that?
When you take close-up photographs in crime scene photography, one of your close-ups should always contain a scale. And what this does is just gives the viewer or somebody who's looking at your photos an idea of how big that object is.
Here's a brown paper bag. No, you can't see through it, but you're familiar with what that is and that sort of thing.
I am. So on the outside of this brown paper bag is actually my handwriting documenting the date and time, my initials. I have listed what is inside, and I also have placed on here our evidence property tag because the GBI has digital evidence. So every item of evidence that I collect gets its own specific identifying barcode. And on the back, you can see my initial sealing of this evidence. So I have my red tape, and on the red tape that I placed on the bag, you have my initials and the date that I initialed it.
Okay, so that is your handwriting there on the front.
Correct.
Okay, that's on the back. That your initials and whatnot at the top there?
Yes, at the top.
Okay, at the bottom, those are not yours?
No.
Okay, that's fine. If you wouldn't mind, could you open that back?
Sure. Do you have a pair?
You have a better way to open it for you. We can do that.
Jeez, I'm breaking my seal. That'll be the easiest.
You want to move these in evidence?
I will.
Yeah,
we
other
will.
additional questions?
It'll be State's Exhibit
Takes exhibit 21. Let the record reflect that prior to handing these to the witness, they were shown to Mr. Miles. Mr. Miles, do you have any objection to these items being admitted into evidence or about the foundation for authentication that's been laid by the state?
Yeah.
Any issues, Mr. Miles? Let the record reflect that Mr. Miles.
Hello, Mr. Miles. Mr. Miles, this is a murder trial.
Has not made any objections to the authentication of the evidence or their admission into evidence.
Take this real quick and see if you can answer this. If not, you get the person who can answer it. You familiar with what this piece of evidence is?
This is the projectile that I collected along the side of the interstate.
Okay. So on that brown paper bag, it said projectile alongside the roadway. This one states something similar to that on the front.
Correct.
This would be that projectile that we're talking about. We questioned the one with the foam in it and such.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Let's see if we can practice.
Can she Let's get it right.
Exhibit 21, 22, sorry. The evidence.
Okay. All right. Is it?
Nobody gives her scissors or anything. They finally do at the end, but she had to open up all these exhibits because prosecutor brought in all kinds of experts. We skip a whole bunch of them, but he brought in everybody, every single person, fingerprint and bullets and gun, and she was the crime scene investigator, and I think I show the coroner. They bring in everybody.
Yes. Agent, is that your
And they don't give anybody scissors to open any of the evidence, but they finally do, like way at the end.
writings on that?
No, sir.
Okay.
But you are familiar with.
I'm familiar with this piece. Oops. Because on the original packaging inside, it looks like it's in two different plastic bags. That is my initials and my handwriting. Or that.
You can clearly see your writing through that bag.
Correct.
So that bag contains the evidence that you collected.
Correct.
Very good. Hold on, Mr. Miles, is there any objection to either the authentication of this particular evidence or its admission? Hearing nothing from Mr. Miles, let the record reflect that it's been previously shown to him, and that he now has no objection to it being admitted into evidence.
Understand, again, we'll get to it. Of course, we like wrote the rest of the stuff on the outside and all that, but that envelope inside, you're writing your initials and such. Who did you give all of this evidence to once you collected?
Once I collected it, everything was turned over to Investigator Hunter with the Twiggs County Sheriff's Office. Yes.
All right. Judge, we'd like to take Exhibit 22, open this back up, and
Mr. Larson, so what I understand, let me make sure. I'll tell you, let's have bench conference. Mr. Miles, will be present for this bench conference? Dude,
I'm not 100% sure, but I think this person right here is his standby counsel, which is completely useless during this trial, 100%.
Let the record reflect that the agent who was previously on the stand is now back in sequestration.
raise your right hand, please. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before the court should be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
All right. State your name, please.
Christopher White,
Christopher White. And where do you work at?
Twiggs County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. And what's your duties there?
I'm employed as a lieutenant with investigations. I'm also the crime scene investigator as well as the evidence vault technician.
Okay. So as far as that, I was saying you're an investigator and such, but you said an evidence vault technician.
Correct.
Okay. What's the duties of that particular part of your job? What do you do with that?
Basically, when the evidence is turned in, I log it and place it into a storage bin in a locked and secured area,
Okay.
as well as enter it into a computer for tracking.
Okay. So you're what they might call an evidence custodian as well.
That's correct.
You're in charge of keeping that evidence, keeping it safe, make sure nobody else tampers with it, getting it, a lot of the evidence to the GBI and other agencies, and then getting it to court safely and that sort of thing.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's fine. It mutes sometimes.
In this case versus Tevin Miles, are you familiar with the evidence you had collected or had in storage with that, just in general?
Yes, in general, I
Okay.
knew where this location and
Okay.
where it was.
And you've been keeping this evidence about 3 years now since this incident happened?
That's correct.
Okay. Some of this evidence, if I could approach the witness.
Please.
So this one is 20. Yes. Yep, it's some back. This piece of evidence is labeled State's Exhibit 21. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, what is that?
That is a bag of evidence that was collected by the GBI with projectiles inside. That I found located in the box of evidence pertaining to this case.
Okay. That handwriting on the front, is that your handwriting?
That is not.
Okay. How about the back? Is any of that towards the top of the flap that was opened up? Is that your initial for handwriting or anything?
The top of the flap is not my initials.
How about the bottom?
The bottom of the flap, it is. They are my initials with the date.
Okay. Why did you initial and date
I received a request from the DA's office to remove a certain projectile that had foam foam embedded in the projectile. As I was going through the evidence, I found this bag that contained that projectile. So I cut the bottom of the bag open, removed that projectile, and sealed this bag back up with my name, with my initials and the date.
Okay. This particular piece of evidence and all the evidence that relates to this case, you said you were in possession of at any time during the last 3 years or so that you've had custody or such as the evidence custodian of this evidence. Are you aware or have you had anyone else have access to this or tamper with the evidence in any such way?
No, nobody has been in the evidence vault
Okay, just you.
Just myself.
Okay. All right. This bag, Sliver States Exhibit 22. Can you tell us what that is?
This is an evidence bag that I filled out that would contain the projectile with the foam that was embedded inside the projectile.
Smart States Exhibit 16, and also close picture on the road, States Exhibit 15. Is that the same one in question?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. As far as this clear plastic bag,
So what happened was they had her on the stand because she was the investigator and opening all the evidence, but then they got to a piece of evidence that there was some writing on the envelope that was not hers. So she could not authenticate that. So for the rules of evidence, he had to lay foundation to that. So she was sequestered. So she was put away where she couldn't talk to anybody. He brought the detective onto the stand. Now, after she had collected all this evidence, he actually opened this one piece of evidence because the prosecutor, him, asked for it so it could be sent to the labs to get tested because there was foam on it. And they wanted to see if that foam matched the car seats, the seats in the car, not a baby seat, the seats in the car. So once he authenticated it with the police officer that held all the evidence, now he can bring her back up on the stand and continue her opening the evidence.
we were talking about that. That's not your writing on the outside, though.
Correct, no.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and open this bag up and let her get her evidence.
Do we have scissors?
I think they might have some.
Judges, for the record, I'm going to open the bag up for her. Yeah, 22.
Mr. Larson.
Yes.
Why don't you? Here.
Don't you dare open up that bag, sir. You are not supposed to.
Where do we need to cut it?
You were set on top.
Right here. Okay. All right. Let the record reflect that I'm in full view and open court, handing it back to the state.
You just can't give her scissors. She's supposed to open it.
I might have it now.
Did I not do a good job?
This one's easier to break. There we go.
It is.
Yep, that is correct. Okay.
So you got another little coin envelope there, and that's got more tape on that?
Correct.
All right. You might need this.
Yeah. Scissors.
Right. Why don't you just, why don't you just hand it to her?
Thank you.
Look at the outside, I'd say.
So that
I have never seen an expert not be given scissors to open up the exhibits. They come with the exhibits. I've never, ever, ever seen a court go through that before.
outside says projectile from along the side of the interstate.
Okay. Okay. You got that open for us.
Correct.
Is your best opinion as to, in your expert opinion, your training and such and experience, how did this bullet or projectile wind up out there in the road along the path of where the car was traveling 70 feet back from where it came to rest?
It's my opinion that once that bullet or projectile passed through the seat, hit the side rail, and then kind of came to rest, that door had to have come open at some point. And then once that door was open is when the projectile was able to fall out of the car.
Okay, so either, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth at all. I just want to make sure we're clear on this. That bullet either fell out or came out of the car, obviously at some point to be on the road. We've got either, and the door had to be been open at some point. I think you testified that when you got there, the door was already open. Of course, we know that they were trying to perform CPR on the victim and such as that. So she was out of the car. But as far as 70 feet backwards and that bullet being there, would that door have had been opened at that point, 70 feet back for the bullet to fall out?
Correct. So 70 feet back up the road where that projectile was found is where that door had to have been open in order for that projectile to even fall out.
So could the door have already been open when that bullet was fired and projectile fell out?
That is also possible.
Okay, and we don't really know for certainty whether the door was already open or say it was fired back from that 70 feet and then opened and it fell out.
Yes, unfortunately, we can't say that for sure.
Yep. But to make it clear, it has to be one of those two. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So, all that being said, is it reasonable to deduct from that round, that projectile itself had to have been fired at least 70 feet back up the road?
Correct.
Could have been obviously much further back or whatever, but it had to have been fired at least 70 feet back from the car came to stop.
Correct. So that projectile had already been fired and came to a rest before it fell out of the vehicle.
It looks like my internet is playing with me a little bit, so I'm pausing it to talk. Hopefully my internet will catch up because we really have to get through this. Time is running out. There we go. Thank you, internet.
70 feet. We will never know if it was another 100 feet up the road or 2 feet up the road. But all I can say for sure is that bullet had been fired and had come to rest and fallen out of the vehicle at 70 feet back up the road.
Okay. If I could have 1 second. Right. All right, Judge. I don't have any further questions of Ms. Patterson right now.
Okay. Mr. Miles, you now have an opportunity to cross-examine further this agent. Do you have any cross-examination questions, Mr. Miles? If so, now is your opportunity. Let the record reflect that Mr. Miles has remained silent and does not choose to cross-examine this witness. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down.
Thank you.
All right. Who's our next witness?
It's going to be the medical examiner. Yeah, Doctor. Yeah, I don't think I'll need to recall her. All right, have a seat. Tell us your name, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I'm Dr. Sandra Reynolds. It's SANDRAREYNOLDS.
And
Now, she's never done this before, has she? Nope, never.
Dr. Reynolds, where are you employed at?
I work at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation headquarters lab in Decatur, Georgia.
Decatur, up in Atlanta.
Yes,
Okay, that's the, you said headquarters of GBI, correct?
yes, in the medical examiner's office.
And you are a medical doctor, correct?
That is correct.
And being a medical doctor and working at the GBI, what is your job? What are your duties there?
As a medical examiner, it's my job to determine the cause and manner of death for people who die in the state of Georgia.
Okay. So when we hear about people having autopsies performed and such, are you the individual that does those?
I'm one of them, yes.
One of them, yeah. So how many y'all have up there?
I think we're at about 12 at headquarters now.
And you stay busy?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about you, how you became a medical doctor, how you got into this field with performing, autopsies and medical stuff with the GBI.
Well, I grew up in South Carolina, and I went to Lander University in Greenwood, South Carolina. And when I finished college, I went to medical school at the University of South Carolina in Columbia. I'm not a Gamecock. When I finished medical school, I did 4 years of residency in anatomic and clinical pathology at Pitt County Memorial Hospital in Greenville, North Carolina. And when I finished the residency program, I did a year-long fellowship at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay. So how long have you been a medical doctor for?
I graduated med school in 2004, so it's been 20 years.
Years. Okay. And I know you gave us some of that experience and such. You've worked some other places. How long have you been doing this with the GBI?
I've been at the GBI now for almost 11 years. It'll be 11 years in February.
Okay. And you may not have an exact number, but in those 11 years, how many of these autopsies and things have you done there?
With the GBI, I'm doing over 3,000.
1,000. Okay. Right. Judge, I would move to have Dr. Reynolds as an expert as far as the medical field, being a doctor in autopsies. And Dr. Reynolds, I ask you, are you the one that determines the cause of death in these cases when you perform these autopsies and such?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Hold just a minute. Mr. Miles, do you have any objection to Dr. Reynolds being admitted as an expert for the purposes that the state has put on the record?
Say something.
Mr. Miles, if you have any objection to Dr. Reynolds being certified as an expert, you need to voice them now. Let the record reflect that Mr. Miles has voiced no objection to Dr. Reynolds being admitted as an expert for the purposes that the state has called her. She's admitted.
See, ladies, the silent treatment does not always work. It is not always the best way to go. I mean, sometimes it is, because if you open your mouth, bad things will happen, but not always.
No, you don't. All right, that's okay. All right, so as far as being an expert in this field and being a medical doctor, performing autopsies and such, as far as this particular case, as to why we're here today, how did you become familiar with this, and tell us what happened at the beginning of that as far as you're concerned?
Well, anytime death occurs in the state of Georgia, it's reported to the coroner, and then the coroner, per the Georgia statutes, reports deaths to our office. And at that point, they give us the circumstances of what's happened, and we determine whether or not we are going to take jurisdiction of the case and perform an autopsy. And that's what occurred in this case. And so once we take jurisdiction, the body is transported to our office, and from there we do the exam.
Okay. And in this particular case, did you receive the body in question you're talking about sometime after November 21st, 2021?
Yes, Ms. Moody's date of death is November 21st, 2021, and we received the body on the 22nd.
Okay.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Larson is making his exhibits available for Mr. Miles to review.
Approach the witness.
Please.
Just without going specifics, could you flip through those photographs? Kind of tell us what those are in general.
As we go through this trial and I'm listening, you won't hear it all. So this won't happen. But I often forget he's there. I just often forget he's even in the room.
These are photographs that were taken at the time of Ms. Moody's autopsy.
Okay, who took those photographs?
It would have either been our designated forensic photographer, or it would have been one of my death investigation specialists that was helping me with the autopsy.
Okay, and they worked together with you in these autopsies and these procedures?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you had a good look at each one of those?
I did.
Does that truly and accurately depict Miss Moody when y'all received her as far as that day, what she looked like and that sort of thing?
Yes, as far as I can tell, it does. This darkness here is abrasion, and it's usually caused by a bullet entering the skin at an odd angle. Normally, when bullets just enter straight into the target, they tend to make a fairly round or slightly ovoid looking hole. But if they have hit something in between leaving the gun and entering the body, they start to lose their nice stability that they had as they were flying through the air, and they start to wobble. And those things can slap the skin and create abrasions as they enter into the body. And so that makes me think that this bullet actually went through another target before it went into her pelvis.
Published copy of stage 33 to the jury.
Yes, sir.
We're looking at 33. So there appears to be some of this dark area, kind of looking at the top of the body down above that one, a little bit to the right. This sort of a dark area kind of waving over to the right. Explain that. Do you know? Is that just the way?
And it could be bullet. It could be anything else that exited what I would call the intermediate target, hitting the skin around that area. It's hard to know exactly what caused that.
Right, that's the indicative of a bullet going left or right? Coming in that direction?
Actually, I believe this bullet might have been moving in a right to left direction.
Right, right, yeah, right to left. That's,
It's always possible that, if she was actually sitting at the time, the bullet could have grazed the skin. If she was sitting, it could graze the skin above the wound as it's passing into the body, and it could change the shape of it depending on how she was leaning or positioned.
if we're looking down, I know it's the right hand side of the picture, it's the left hand side of the body here. Hypothetically, if she was, set like this and a bullet came from the right hand direction across her body, that could cause some of this injury looking over towards the left side of the body.
It could, depending on how her body was oriented.
Stacy 34.
Someone's eating candy like in the Kelly trial.
This is another one of the entrance wounds, and I'd like to compare it to our photograph. This is going to be the lower entrance wound on the right side of her abdomen.
Again, that's just a close-up so we can see some of the darker area there on stage 34. Again, what we call some of that darker area.
Again, same sort of thing. This is a more irregular looking gunshot entrance wound. So the bullet that entered here may have passed through another target before it hit this part of her body.
Published copy of stage 34.
Yes, sir.
All right, this is stage 35. That's what that is.
So this is the gunshot entrance wound that is the in the upper right abdomen, kind of near the rib cage.
And the second one down.
Yes.
Right. And this one, again, not your credit with this question, but this one looks markedly darker or almost a sharp look to it. What would cause this?
Yes, again, that is abrasion. Abrasions dry, of course, after the person has died. So anytime there's a lapse of time between the death and the autopsy, we tend to see these things get darker and darker in color. But this particular wound has a good bit of abrasion around it. Eventually, you'll see that there are wounds that are going to come through her arms, and it looks as though perhaps her arm may have been up against her body, so that when a bullet went through the arm, it caused the bullet, who's already wobbling to get in the body, to also slap the surrounding skin around her body and create that abraded look.
Judge, I will publish a copy of stage
All
35.
right. Thank you.
I move to put these into evidence. As the projectiles that were recovered from Ms. Moody to the states of 38, 39, and 40.
38, 39, and 40.
Just for the record, 38 and 39 are two plastic bags that each contain 2 of these clear boxes with projectiles in them.
Okay.
States of 40 is the plastic bag, 1 with plastic box.
For a total of 5. Will you, I'm not sure, maybe I missed it. Will you show those to Mr. Miles, please? On the record, reflect that Mr. Larson is showing the evidence to Mr. Miles at this point in time.
Resistance is futile.
All right, Mr. Larson, you move to admit states exhibit 38, 39, and 40 into evidence. Is that correct? All right, Mr. Miles, do you have any objection to the
This trial is going super quick, super smooth, but make no mistake, this judge is angry. This judge hates that He is not being properly defended.
The authenticity or to these exhibits being admitted into evidence in this case. Chain of custody issues, Mr. Miles, that you wish to raise. The record reflects Mr. Miles has remained silent and therefore has not objected to the admissibility of these evidence or their authenticity or the chain of custody, and they are admitted as 38, 39, and 40 states exhibits.
All right, Judge. No further questions, Mr. White, right now.
All right. Hold on just a minute. Mr. Miles, do you have any objection? Or any cross-examination? I said the wrong thing. Do you have an objection? Do you have any cross-examination questions, Mr. Miles? Now is your opportunity, sir. If you wish to ask cross-examination questions of Lieutenant White, now is your chance. Let the record reflect that he has chosen not to ask any questions. Lieutenant White, you're excused. Thank you, sir.
Judge, that's all the questions I have before we get to the next witness. So.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's now about 20 minutes after 12. Let's do this just for, let's have a little scheduling conference. Council, we all approach. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, it's a little after 12:20 now. We're going to take a lunch break. Evan Alexander Miles, let's see. Before we bring the jury out, let's just.
I loved leaving, let's take a lunch break in because we should all just take lunch breaks.
Run through our checklist here, Mr. Miles. Now is your opportunity, sir. If anything about your status regarding your attire has changed, you are aware of your rights by now, Mr. Miles. I'll give you the opportunity to let me know if we need to change things up. Hearing nothing from Mr. Miles, the court will proceed on. He will remain dressed in the orange jumpsuit in which he is currently wearing. What
Drip is fire. Fro.
about counsel,
On
Mr.
track.
Miles? Is there any way that you would consider having counsel help you and assist you in this case? As you are well aware at this point, you have an absolute right to counsel simultaneous to your right to represent yourself. If you remain silent now, Mr. Miles, I'll assume that you do not want counsel, that you're waiving that right, and therefore exercising your right to represent yourself in this criminal action. Let the record reflect that Mr. White has remained silent and therefore is waiving his right to counsel and exercising his right to represent himself in this criminal action.
You said Mr. White.
Did I say Mr. White?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, Mr. Miles. You're good, Mr. White. You stay there. Pardon me, I just misspoke, Mr. Miles. I have Lieutenant White's name written on my name pad, and that must have caused the confusion there. All right, Mr. Washington, please proceed.
Hey, Judge, before I call another witness, I have a certified copy of the Georgia death certificate for Tykeria Moody.
Yeah. Let the record reflect that Mr. Larson is showing that particular matter to Mr. Miles.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So
She's cute. So I definitely left her entire testimony in.
help you God.
I do.
All right, state your name, please.
Betty Jane Evans.
Okay, I'm gonna call you Miss Evans.
Mhm.
All right, Miss Evans, where are you employed at?
Twice County Sheriff's Office, but I'm a contract worker for them.
Okay,
Southern Healthcare Partners is the main office.
and what's the name of that place?
Southern Healthcare,
Southern Healthcare,
Mhm.
okay, and you're a contract worker?
we're a contract worker for the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, and what are your duties as far as that contract work? What kind of work do you do?
I'm a nursing director there and I take care of the inmates.
You're a nurse there?
Mhm.
Okay. And you, in that course of duty, do you take care of day-to-day needs, medical needs and such, that maybe, accidents, or also just medical things that arise and that sort of deal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have interactions with the inmates in general on a day-to-day basis, or is this sort of,
If they put in a sick call, I see them, or I see all the inmates usually put in a sick call. They're brought to my office to be seen.
okay. Back in April of 2022, you were still working there then?
Yes, sir.
How long have you worked there?
Almost 17 years.
17 years. Okay. So yeah, back in April of 2022, you were working there. And were you already familiar with the defendant in this case is sitting over there, Mr. Miles?
Mr. Miles, yeah.
Okay. He'd already been there and you were familiar with him at that point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. One of those days in early April or so, was there an incident or something that occurred at the jail, not involving Mr. Miles, but some other inmate there that,
Yes,
that was causing sort of a ruckus or something?
He had a guy in B1 had a leg injury. And when he went to come out, he fell down. He was in a lot of pain. So they brought me to the pod, and they have to secure the area before I go in. And Mr. Miles was locked back anyway, and because he only came out that time for an hour a day. And so I walked in there, and the man was screaming, and then he got thrashing around. And I backed off and let the officers get him stabilized so
This
I could
other
see.
man, this other inmate on the grounds was
Mhm,
scratching.
yeah. And he was in pain, and they were trying to get him up and so we could see about him. So I backed off and got out of the area and got toward B3, B2, right there at that area.
And that's B2, B3, that's the jail cells themselves?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
And-
who was in one of those cells? Was that,
Mr. Miles was in B3,
okay,
and he was mad because he couldn't come out for his hour. And he kicked the door, and that's what got my attention. And I was right there at the door, and I turned around, I told him just right there. And as soon as we got him out, they let him out. And all I heard him say then is, I should have shot that bitch in another county.
okay.
That's all I heard.
Should have shot that bitch in another county.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can't believe the mouth this nurse has on her. I thought nurses weren't supposed to say bad words. Nan.
All right. I have no further questions.
Mr. Miles, do you have any cross-examination questions for this witness? Mr. Miles, if you have any questions for this witness, now is your opportunity to ask her cross-examination questions. Let the record reflect, Mr. Miles has remained silent, not exercised his right to ask cross-examination questions of this witness. Ma'am, you're excused. Thank you. Mr. Miles, do you have any objections to the form of the verdict form? Counsel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give y'all a copy of the charges. If y'all look through them, and if y'all have any suggestions, proposed charges that are not included, y'all just let us know, and we'll make that determination. And likewise, Mr. Miles, when you receive your copy of the jury charge, if you have any proposed jury charges that you think are appropriate, please let me know.
They almost gave him a staple. Ooh.
All right, so I'll say again, Mr. Miles, any objections to the jury, the verdict form? State, any objections to the verdict form?
No objection.
All right. And we all agree that this is an appropriately redacted indictment.
As far from the state, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Miles, do you have any objections to the redacted indictment that has been supplied by the court? Now is your opportunity, sir.
One question. No grand jury remains, I don't know if the jury thinks the stream's about
No, we always indict those or redact those off.
that.
Yeah. That's been my understanding of the practice.
There we go. He spoke, guys. Don't worry. He's going to speak more.
For the judge, please tell the jury.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just say it's been appropriately redacted.
I got no problem with it. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Maybe don't involve something like
Yep, very well. Yes, sir. I'll mention that. Thank you, Ms. Townsend. All right. Gentlemen, for the sake of some brevity here, I think it's appropriate to go page by page. Any issues on page 1? State.
No issue.
I mean, these are the pattern jury instructions, okay? They're pulled off the sidebar. Mr. Miles, any objections to page 1? Any objections to page 2? State.
No objection.
All right, Mr. Miles, any objections to page 2? Page 3, any
I do not go through every page. I stop it and fast forward. I'm just giving you a gist of what's going on.
objections?
No objection.
Mr. Miles? Nothing. Page 4. Any objections?
No objection.
Mr. Miles, page 4, any objections? Anything, Mr. Larson?
No.
We're good? Okay. Page 5. Any issues on page 5?
No objection.
All right, Mr. Miles, any objections to page 5? Page 6.
I'm sure I cut them out. There's a lot of pages. Don't worry.
No objection.
Mr. Miles, any objections to the charges on page 6? Hearing none. Page 7.
No objection on 7.
All right, Mr. Miles. Any objections to the charges on page 7? Page 8, state.
No objection.
All right, Mr. Miles, page 8, any objections?
So that's my bad.
Hearing none.
Look at the first.
I'm guessing. So kind of skipping.
All right, page 11, Mr. Miles.
Page 12, they have a problem.
Hearing none. Page 12.
There are some issues with 12, Your Honor.
All right.
So kind of skipping around the section as far as aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. I'm guessing that was in there from maybe when we had the felony murder charge based on the aggravated assault.
If you look at the first heading where deadly force is used, number 2, to prevent the commission of a forcible felony, which is aggravated assault, that's why it's defined.
Where?
All right. So the top full paragraph, when deadly force is used, a defendant is justified in using force that is intended or likely to cause death or serious bodily injury when to prevent B, the commission of a forceful felony, which means a felony that involves the use of force or violence against another.
He didn't object. They're coming up with these problems all on their own, but the judge is just going to keep it moving.
Dead weapon. Second paragraph says the proof assault, state does not have to prove source and so. That refers to the state's proof and then assault.
You have suggested language, Mr. Larson?
Well, I don't think the burden is on the state to prove aggravated assault.
How about to prove assault, the other person does not have to be actually injured? The first sentence.
Give me 1 second, please.
So just for your understanding, it is like 4:35 right now. I don't know exactly what time it is, but it is touching 5 o'clock. And these are the charges. And then they have to give the jury instructions to the jury. They still have to do their closing statements. And the trial was supposed to end today, I believe. I'm not 100% sure if they said it was going to end today, but the judge wants to keep going. And the prosecution wants to keep going and keep the jurors late. Mr. Moore, whatever, I don't remember his name, he doesn't speak at all. So they're trying to hurry through this. And these two people are irritating the judge right now.
Well, those the aggravated assault, is you told me that there's several types of aggravated assault, particularly with deadly weapon. There's assault in placing in reasonable fear. There's assault, the actual intent to commit an act of violence. According to the case, according to evidence in the case, and of course the charge should be tailored to the evidence. If there's an aggravated assault, at the time he shot them all, according to his own statement, he slapped the pistol, he took it to her. She wasn't doing anything, according to the statement about him, which I believe she got a transcript, finally, and that's when he shot. So he's not defending himself in aggravated assault. Now, he might have been seeking some sort of revenge, but he was not defending himself in aggravated assault. He says this. After he says this is on page 155, transcript of what his statement. I looked down the barrel of the gun, smack, bang, the window's out. I grabbed the gun, I pulled it like this, demonstrates that. She pulls back the gun, she comes back a little. Question. So once she got the gun, what did she do? She came back a little, jumped back again, not like a jump, but more like a pickup. When you got something going, somebody goes back.
Yeah. And I remember all the testimony.
Let me say this, if it goes on, the investigator asks further questions. Did she try to hit you anymore? No. The only thing was just to grab it. That was the only thing. So you all tussled with the gun, you got the gun, she never tried to do anything else. Ma'am, she couldn't. So at the time he shoots, he's saying she was not presenting any danger to him. So to say that aggravated assault being committed is why he's justified in killing her. There was no assault being committed with the killer according to his own words. And a charge must be tailored to the evidence. It must be correct statement of the law. It maybe, but it's not tailored to the only evidence in this case. What he said is out of his own mouth, it's unrebutted, it's unimpeached, it's unchallenged. That the woman that he shot was doing nothing toward him at the time he shot.
All right, I understand your argument. Let's get through the rest of these. Then I'm gonna take a time out and figure this out. And if y'all have some other language that you suggest would be better, then I'll give y'all an opportunity to write that out too. So for the sake of moving forward, let's look. Other than that particular issue, are there other issues on page 12?
Nothing.
All right. Mr. Miles, do you have any objections to the language listed on page 12, or do you have any response to Mr. Larson's arguments? All right, hearing none from Mr. Miles. Let's look at page 13. Any issues on page 13?
This is standard language. This attorney should already know this.
I would disagree with you. Threats justifying a homicide. There's no evidence here that any threats are going on to justify a homicide. If you believe what he said, she pointed it this way, if that's what you believe. Now, there's other evidence, we'll argue, we say that's not going on. But take it, it's most favorable to him. And she pointed it this way. Okay? Now, the defendant's use of deadly force may be justified if there's no physical contact. If the menacing action of the alleged victim is sufficient to create a reason to believe that his life will be maintained. All that may be true up to the point where with him, they snapped the pistol, he took it, and she's entirely unarmed. And there's no more weapons in the car. Now, that's one time, this is unethical. And this charge has got to be applicable to the facts of the case. There's no dispute from his own mouth, not what we say. If she's dead, she gets caught. But he said he had the pistol in his hands at the time that he shot. So there's no threats of homicide going on there, except one of the whole. So self-defense requires a reasonable belief of something imminent. That means right now, death is used by the enemy. That's not so under his own fact of his own mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So the charge is going to mislead the jury into thinking, well, since he pointed the gun at him, that's an aggravated assault, and he was placed in fear. So he can go ahead and shoot her down after he gets the gun. That's just not the law.
All right. Same thing with that. Let's move on to page 14. Mr. Miles, do you wish to make a closing argument to the jury? Mr. Miles, this will be your last opportunity in the context of this trial to address this jury. If you wish to address this jury, Mr. Miles, I need you to let me know now. Let the record reflect that I have given Mr. Miles sufficient time to consider my statement, and he is declining to address the jury and has declined to make a closing argument in this case. I'll turn it over to Mr. Larson for closing.
Judge, I have about 2 minutes.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Yesterday morning, y'all sat here and talked to y'all, told you that it was going to be a process over a couple of days.
So this guy right here has an open and shut case, a slam dunk. He got to say every single thing he wanted to say without objection, and he didn't have anybody say anything to rebut any of it. All he has to do is give a good closing statement. All he has to do is give a good closing statement that doesn't annoy the jurors.
Y'all going to hear from law enforcement yesterday. Y'all going to hear from forensics and such as that today. I submit to you what we've done. We've listened to the whole thing. It's like a little bit of a puzzle. If you hear one piece of it, you don't understand the whole picture. I submit to you, we painted this whole picture now. We've got stuff yesterday, you heard from law enforcement from Brunswick that came up and told y'all how this whole thing started skewing down that way 3 hours away. What happened on the bridge, incident, who was going to drive the car, and saying we heard stuff in the video about the defendant, being ill, that he didn't want to drive the car anymore, and that sort of thing. And you heard testimony from the officer and all as to why they let them leave that area and they continued on back up this road towards Twiggs County. So and again, that's what I submit to you. This whole thing started down there. He was already not happy that she wouldn't drive the car. I submit to you, this whole thing continued going. As you heard on the interview is very important. We'll keep coming back to that, what you heard in this statement of the interview. Same thing. That this thing continued on for hours. They stopped, they took a little break, got some rest at one point, got some gas. You heard him say on the interview that Miss Moody called 911 down the road around the animal farm, around the Meadow. So, but kind of abandoned that, got back in the car, and they continued driving up this way an hour and a half or so, whatever it would take to get to Meadow. Once they got back up here, that's where everything really kind of broke loose and got to where we are today. You heard from Patrick White, who was the first officer on the scene, what he saw, that Miss Moody she was already deceased by the time he got there. A few minutes later, we still tried to render aid to her, give her CPR and such, but there was no use. She had already, unfortunately, deceased at that point. We heard from, this morning, we heard from Harley Decker, the GBI agent, who showed up. She processed the entire scene. She told y'all it's kind of like, the bullseye thing started up here, narrow down. Looking at the whole scene, what we saw, passed those pictures around y'all, and y'all got to see those, what she saw that day, which really accurately depicted the scene was. We saw the glass out in the road, out in that emergency lane. 84 feet so back, and we had the bullet up there, 70 feet or so from where the car came to rest eventually. You heard her say that glass in the car that was shot out, we saw in the window, pretty much the glass was in the road. We had the bullet out there, and then the car stopped. Okay. So we're going back and looking at this evidence, the testimony and the physical evidence we saw. Painting this picture for you. We saw the inside of the car, what that looked like. She said she got the shell casings where they were in the car, 3 in front, 1 in the console area, 2 more in the back. And then we heard from the doctor this morning, Dr. Reynolds, medical examiner, and you heard some interesting testimony from her regarding there were 4 bullets found in Miss Moody's body. We saw those in the x-ray, testified that she recovered those. Those are in evidence. We saw those bullets in that one fragment that was remaining. So we have the 4 bullets in her body, 1 bullet out the back, and 1 bullet in the road. That accounts for the 6 shell casings that she found in the car. You heard Dr. Reynolds testify as to the entrance wounds in Miss Moody's body. And again, you all saw a picture of one of the torso. It had 4 holes like this, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here's the testimony about there was 8 entrance wounds into how it happened with just 4 rounds, some going to the arm and the torso. very importantly, you heard her talk about the abrasion, or excuse me, not abrasion, but the gunshot wound sort of deeper than a graze. That was on the thigh we saw. We saw how that looked close up and where it was on the thigh. We heard Dr. Reynolds' testimony that at first it kind of looked like the bullet was going one direction, but depending on how someone was sitting, that could change the way it would look when someone once they were shot. You saw me demonstrate, me ask her hypothetically, if someone were to turn, say to the left, and have her arm like this, whether that bullet could cause that wound mark in someone traveling right left pattern. And going in her arm, she said there were these wounds on her arm that then exited and went into her torso. And that's very important. So think about that point and remember that. And you heard her say the cause of death was these multiple wounds. There was one to nick the aorta. That was serious, but basically just a loss of blood.
So she actually did say all of that. So just keep in mind that she did say all of that. I just cut it all out because it was pretty bad. But he just summed it up nicely in a nice way.
Is what caused her death. We heard from Mr. Burdick, the firearms expert. He testified that the gun that's in evidence that y'all saw, his test rounds and all the tests and forensic stuff he does, came back and gave a positive identification for it. That is the firearm that was used here, the bullets that were recovered from Ms. Moody's body were fired from that particular firearm. You heard from Ms. Haas about her latent prints and prints she found, or one print she found, other prints she didn't find.
That was really
One print
boring.
she found was on the magazine of the firearm. So we're going to think about that for a minute. No prints whatsoever on the rest of that firearm. There's one on the magazine. We'll come back to that and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. And you heard about the foam fiber that was found, that bullet in the road linked back to the foam that was in the seat, which I submit to you. That one rod we saw that Agent Patterson testified to, the flight rod we saw coming down from right to left, from the front to the back, was the one that hit the railing under the seat and then went out of the car, exited the car, fell out of the car, whichever way it was. It didn't have a lot of velocity. Went that. And that was a bullet that came through the seat. And we linked that up to show you the rod, the trajectory, that foam sitting out there and where it was. And at the end, we heard from Ms. Hefner said, she took the fingerprints that Ms. Haas
Hefner
was able to look at those and compare the prints with the print on the gun, on the magazine, to Mr. Miles' prints that were taken at the jail. So just an overview of the evidence. That's kind of what we heard, kind of what we saw, other than the interview. Obviously, that's a very important part of this whole thing. Now, here's where we are, having a little overview of that. I'm going to submit to you, I told you yesterday, that I was going to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt that it was malice work. Now, I'll say there's one of two things that happened.
Hard to lie.
Mr. Miles, this is not your opportunity, so
The whole thing.
please remain silent,
This
Mr.
whole
Miles.
hearing, all these
Mr. Miles.
cases is based off of that.
I am instructing you, Mr. Miles. Mr. Miles, be quiet.
That false evidence.
Mr. Miles, we're going to stop it.
Oh, we just having a conversation.
This is not the time for conversations,
That's
Mr. Miles.
tamper evidence.
Mr. Miles, if you,
Allow me.
Mr. Miles, if you make one more sound, I will remove you from this courtroom.
You know it's tamper evidence. I know it's tamper evidence.
Jury,
I got a bunch of evidence that they won't let me show.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, bailiff, please take them out.
Yeah, he's not done. Don't worry, he's not done yet. There are 4 bailiffs on him right now. Watch your mouth, Judge. He said, good gracious.
We got him in place. Yeah.
I think that's standby counsel.
To the deputies in the small courtroom, this is a test. I want to make sure y'all can hear me. All right. The Chief Deputy Lawrence told me that the defendant is in place. Let's bring the jury back in. Yes, sir. Chief Deputy. Hey, buddy.
Okay, I'll do it for you so you guys don't have to. Oh my gosh, we can see the jury? No way. That's illegal. I can't believe we can see the jury.
Sorry.
There, I got it for you.
Testify that
Are we
it's
good?
okay. What you've done with him. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, jury, you can sit down. All right. I apologize for the interruption, ladies and gentlemen. Chief Deputy, will you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear affirm testimony you'll give to the court this afternoon is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? You can put your hand down, just speak loudly so Miss Donna can hear you. Chief Deputy, we, at my request, we have made arrangements for Mr. Miles to view these proceedings. Is that correct? Is that being done via the court's live stream?
That is correct.
Is he set up in the other courtroom down the hall? Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and he's able to hear and see all of these proceedings in real time.
Yeah,
All right, we've done a sound check.
we have.
All right, verified that it is working, correct?
We have.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, I apologize for the interruption. We have made arrangements for Mr. Miles to view these proceedings. As you heard, in a different area of the courtroom, he is watching these proceedings in real time. And his rights have been protected as it relates to that. In regards to Mr. Miles' statements, this court has given Mr. Miles every opportunity to participate in these proceedings. But because he represents himself, he is required to follow the appropriate procedure that is outlined on the court's rules. And what I have said and done here today to make Mr. Miles aware of how he is to participate in these proceedings in order to retain control of the courtroom. These are the measures that I have put in place. So I ask that you just disregard his statements and let's move on and allow Mr. Larson to complete the remainder of his closing arguments. Go ahead.
I apologize again about my voice. It's the end of the day, but get through it. I'm just going to address something real quick. I know he was up there talking. He mentioned something about false evidence. Y'all heard him make several statements the last 2 days. And this evidence is false. Okay. And I was literally just talking about the interview video, but y'all heard the Miranda rights waiver. He waived his right. Words out of his own mouth. Okay, this is not false evidence unless it's false and he's lying about it. So which one is it? He's lying about the evidence. The only way it could be false and it ain't. So again, we're gonna go back to that and touch on that. There's one of two ways this whole thing happened. Either one, it happened basically the way he said it happened, which I'm going to submit to you, still equals malice murder. Or it happened a little bit more the way I submit to you it happened, what the evidence showed and is going to show, or what the evidence showed, and I'm going to submit to you, more or less happened that way. That way, he's a murderer and a liar. So let's kind of break these down and look at these as 1 and 2. His way. His way, he says it happened. That coming back up the road, and let's skip forward to where he hears this click clack and all this that wakes him up supposedly, and that's the magazine going in the gun and then the gun being shut and getting ready to fire. So according to him, that's what happened. That's what woke him up. And there's a bit of a struggle. There's a gun, a round that's fired off behind his head out that back right window. Then he says there's a struggle for the gun, this sort of thing. And he's able to get the gun away from Miss Moody. And we saw the video, the interview video, and he's asked about, how'd that happen? And he's telling about how it happened and then demonstrating, kind of how that happened. And if y'all saw him demonstrate that, he gets to the point where he's got the gun and basically, I'm sorry, I've got to talk in this mic, otherwise he can't hear me. So I'd like to move around a little bit more, but I got to stay a little bit put. But so as y'all can see in the video, it's like he's got the gun, he's showing this, and he turns and he's like, well, I flipped it and put it in my right hand. And then, he's saying then he had to shoot it. So he's saying there was a struggle for the gun. He got the gun, had the time to flip it around, put it in his right hand, and then shot her. So let's think about that for a minute. You can fear for your life if someone that's meant to you has got a pistol and they're pointing it, say he's pointing at Miss Moody, or I'm sorry, she's pointing at him. There's a struggle. He grabs it and immediately turns it on her and shoots her. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4, but there's 5 bullet holes. 4 in her torso and the 1 in her leg. 5, and there's 1 out the window, 6. So he shoots her 5 times. You heard from his own mouth in the interview, there was no other weapon. She didn't have another gun. So at that point, again, this is not the way I say it happened. This is the way he says it happened out of his own mouth in the interview. He was able to wrestle the gun away from her. At that point, let's stop and pause. We're watching the movie. Let's hit pause on this. Right now, he's got the gun. She has nothing. She's in the driver's seat of this car. Now he has a gun pointed at her. Now what? Is she a threat to him? Threat to his life? In imminent fear of this woman? Look through the photographs from the crime scene. For all of them. That's correct. So there was State's Exhibit 18, which you heard Agent Patterson say was the driver's license of Miss Moody. And y'all saw that was passed around. On her Georgia driver's license, she's 5'5", 148. Okay. Y'all seen Mr. Miles in the courtroom the last 2-3 days, you've been able to make some physical identification of him compared to, say, a 5'5", 140-something pound woman. Okay, so you've got Miss Moody sitting in the driver's seat at 5'5", 140-something. Mr. Miles is well over 6 feet, way heavier than 148, sitting in the passenger seat with a gun pointed at Miss Moody. Okay, that's where you hit the pause button. Now, he says, out of his own mouth, can't believe what I just had to do. You just had to shoot Miss Moody. Okay. Again, going on his own story here. I just had to. Well, again, going on his own story. Let's say he had to shoot her. He shot her one time. Okay. Y'all think 5'5", 148 Miss Moody in the driver's seat, who's now been shot one time with a 9mm, is now still a threat, an imminent threat to Mr. Miles' life, with no weapon, no knife, nothing else. Y'all saw the scene, there was nothing else there. There was some cold medicine and a pack of cigarettes. There's nothing there. She was not a threat to him. But he just had to shoot her a second time. At that point, you think she's now become more of an imminent threat to him? He shoots her a third time. Still, he must have been in fear of his life, that she was about to kill him, be imminent threat to him, cause bodily harm. Nope. Shoots her a fourth time. Still, I'm in fear for my life. Next to this much smaller woman sitting in the driver's seat of this car, out in the emergency lane. Y'all heard from the interview, the car she had her foot on the brake. Well, someone there shoots her a fifth time. Now, I guess he determined that was enough at that point. Because we had some more rounds, but I guess he determined, I submit to you, that was enough. And maybe she wasn't, a harm to him anymore at that particular point. So that way it happened, supposedly, through his own words, his own mouth in the interview we heard. That's one way, let's say hypothetically, it could have happened, according to him. That way, there is no justification. We talk about hitting that pause button, and he's the only individual with a gun, a weapon, any threat to anybody. I'm gonna tell y'all this one. If it happened today, went home and turned on the news. We turned on Fox News and we looked, and there's a story and say there'd been a police officer who got in a scuffle with somebody. The guy pointed a gun at a police officer. Police officer got in a scuffle with the guy and took the gun from him and immediately shot him 5 times. That would be all over the news. That's all we would hear. Damn shame that that cop killed that guy. Shot him 5 times. He was unarmed. Well, the guy pointed a gun at the cop. Yeah, he didn't have anything else. The cop took the gun from him and then not just one time in the leg, 4 in the torso, 1 in the leg, just killed him in cold blood. We'd be hearing about that for months on the news. So take that same situation, apply it here. In his words, what he says happened. If that's what happened, it's murder. It's still murder. Okay? Now, let's take a break and go to what I say actually happened and what the evidence actually shows what happened in this case. So the same thing. We'll go kind of the trip back, their driver back. You heard evidence again.
So I know he is supposed to plant a seed of doubt. Or no, he's supposed to give an alternate of what, okay, all right. The defendant was saying it's self-defense. The whole time he was saying to the police, it was self-defense. They heard the interview, which we did not hear. They heard the interview where supposedly it's self-defense. Okay. So he has to somehow overcome it was self-defense when no one was there. And the way he does it, to me, kind of annoyed me because, like, he just makes up a story here. He makes completely out of thin air, makes up a story. And I guess you're supposed to do that, but you can't prosecute someone on a made up story. I mean, how can you prosecute someone on a made up story? I don't know, but that's what he does here.
And in the interview, how he talked about, where this gun was and such. They asked him, where was this gun at this time? He basically said, well, last time I saw it, it was in the glove compartment. And he talked about, well, if the glove compartment had been opened up while he was sleeping, that would have woke him up. He would have felt that. But last time he saw the gun, it was in the glove compartment. Okay. Said not sure if she reached over and got it while he was asleep, but that would have woken him up. Okay. Well, the thing with the gun is, earlier when they talk about stopping her own matter, she calls 911. Never mind, she called 911, not Mr. Miles, who was supposedly in fear for his life and such. That he later in the interview seemed to, oh yeah, that was important. Yeah, by the way, yeah, she was threatening me, by the way. I think that was important to maybe mention earlier at that point. Just, I forgot to mention, yeah, she was threatening me. Well, again, if she's threatening him earlier, which mind you, again, she was the one that called 911, not Mr. Miles. She called 911 down there. But for sake of argument, she's threatening him earlier, as he says, not when they got up here in Jeffersonville, Highway 96 and stuff, and ran out of gas and had to get gas and all that. She's threatening him, supposedly, well before. Okay. He's in fear. I just want to get home, all this sort of thing. Well, for one, if you're in that much fear, you got a gun yourself and all this. Why don't you just get out of the car? You heard investigators asking that. Why didn't you just leave? Well, I'll throw over from home. Well, I submit to you, if it's your life you're talking about, walk home, find another way, do something else.
If she was a woman, I don't know if he would say that or ask it that way because I wouldn't think that's odd that she didn't run right away if it was a woman and she was very scared.
But again, let's say she's threatening him. They get up to Twix County. They run out of gas from Highway 96. They park at the Marathon station on Highway 96 out by the interstate. He walks across the bridge over to the Exxon, the Huddle House, gets $5 in gas, brings it back across the bridge, puts that in the car. Then they drive the car back across 96 and get some more gas and continue up the road. Okay. So again, let's go back to this gun. It's in the glove compartment. The last time he saw it, and yet, out of his own words, he was in fear of his life. She's threatening him and stuff. He leaves the car, supposedly, I guess, leaves the gun in the glove compartment. Miss Moody sitting there in the car. This woman's threatening him. I'll leave her with my gun. I'll go get gas. Come back. Man, I ain't worried about where the gun is. I haven't looked. This woman's threatening me. I'll get back in the car with her and the gun I've left her with. Past that number of minutes while I've gone walking and getting gas. I submit to you, none of that happened. He didn't leave her with that gun. He had the gun on him the whole time. I submit to you, no one reasonable would be in a car with someone threatening them for hours, them being the only one with the gun, and then leave that person in the car along with that pistol. And then come back, only check, like, where's my gun or whatever. Just continue on up the road. So either she got the gun out while he was somehow falling asleep between Highway 96 and Sagoda Road. To ask y'all, residents of Twiggs County, you know about how far that is. He's now falling asleep between there and there. And I guess, you know,
I don't live there, but it sounds like it was a short distance.
I don't know. According to him, she would have woken him up, getting it out of the glove compartment. So I guess according to him, she got the gun out. But again, he's going to leave her with that gun. And I'm in fear for my life. And she's threatening me and such. None of that makes sense. He had the gun the entire time. Let's get to when we get down the road. Right, it's a good road, the crime scene itself. We see the glass in the road. We saw that on that state's exhibit, the picture of where the car was in relation to the glass and where the bullet was. It was, you know, glass 84 feet or so back from where the car came to rest. And then we see the bullet that was sitting out in the emergency lane that Agent Patterson picked up. And that's the one that had the foam in it and such that went through the seat. The thing about that is that bullet, as y'all heard testimony from Agent Patterson, let's call it, fell out of that car. It wasn't shot through the floorboard. It didn't shoot through the door like the bullet in the back that went through the window and shot out and broke stuff and all that. It basically fell or tumbled out of the driver's side door. It hit that railing under the seat, tumbled, and then went out the door. I submit to y'all got common sense. Now think about this. If that bullet fell out of the door, that door was already open. You know why? 84 feet back, you got glass shot out the back passenger side. And within 10 feet or so, we've got the bullet laying out there in the road. Within 10 feet or so, that glass bullet, then the car another 70 feet forward. So here's
All he had to do was give a really good closing statement. He's okay, but people are yawning. You can hear them yawning. You can hear the judge frequently yawning.
the thing about that. It just doesn't make sense with his story.
Oh, wait a second. I'm from Pennsylvania, and this is Georgia. And people do speak slower down south than they do up north. So maybe, no, nope, it's not just me. He needs to talk faster.
And this is just math. I'd ask the court, no issues with math being brought in, just a equation. This is not an opinion. It's just math. I'm going to take judicial notice of a math equation here. Not even an equation, just simple math. You're going 10 feet at 10 miles per hour. Let's just say that car was 10 miles an hour. They slowed down at that point.
Okay, you lost all the jury there. They're already gone. You're done. Sit down.
In the emergency lane. Just even that slow at 10 miles an hour. That 10 feet between the glass and where that bullet that went through the seat wound up in the road, 0.68 seconds. basically, right, 2/3 of a second. That. Now, his story, woke up, click, clack, all this. She had the gun pointed at me. We wrestled for the gun. She shot out the back window. Now, again, let's hit pause on this. She is now shot out the back window behind me. Well, now they struggle and tussle for this gun. I get it, and I flip it around and all this stuff. And I shoot her. He's going to shoot through the seat. That round went, hit her leg, went through the seat, fell out of the car. That happened within 0.68 seconds if they're moving at 10 miles an hour. Let's just say, for example, that's super fast. If they're moving at 5 miles an hour, it's 1.36 seconds. All this happened. That's too fast to be. I mean, that car was barely moving. Let's say if it's 3 seconds. I'm gonna have this tussle with somebody, get the gun away from them. We saw him on the interview, his own words. Hey, did this, he took the gun, turned around, flipped it, put it in his right hand. All this happened in an instant between the glass being shot out and where that bullet came out of the driver's side door. I submit to you that, again, that didn't happen. He had that gun the entire time. This is a controlling individual, someone that has to have things their way. He'd already said in the interview he was mad because she wouldn't drive.
He said that.
Didn't, down there at the bridge. He was tired of driving. They got in a tussle down there about that. That he didn't want to drive. This continued. Other things we don't know about, arguments, whatnot. Continued going up that road for hours. I submit to you that they were still arguing about that, probably other things as well. She'd had enough of driving. But she pulled up the emergency lane. I'm not driving anymore. You're going to drive. No, I'm not going to drive. You keep driving. This sort of thing continued. What I submit happened to you. Now, we hear from her words what actually happened, but unfortunately, he took that right away from her by killing her. So we won't, unfortunately, know exactly what was being said, argue about what he was telling her, what she was telling him. Unfortunately,
You're on again, Jazz. Is that what we think? Honestly, is that what we really believe, honestly? That she didn't want to drive anymore, so she pulled over and then he shot her for it? No. They were spending too much money, or they didn't have any money, or someone was cheating. That's why. It's one of those two reasons. It's not they were driving that they didn't feel like driving anymore. So he shot her.
We just have to take the evidence as it is, what we've heard, testimony, physical evidence. We have to piece this together. And this is what we've got.
That's not what we got, dude.
He's demanding something of her. This continues. She pulls off into that emergency lane. She won't listen. He's had enough. He doesn't want to shoot the gun right out beside his head. Doesn't necessarily shoot it out that way towards the interstate. Either side here. He reaches behind him, pops one. I said, do whatever I'm saying to do. Keep driving. Don't you stop, such and such, whatever he's telling her. It's a demanding thing. Let's call it a warning shot. That's what he does out the back. At the same time, this very quick, let's just say that the car is barely creeping along. It's 2 to 3 seconds. That next 10 feet. There's another one. She says something to him. He says something, whatever happens there. He then takes that pistol. You saw the trajectory on the seat. We saw the rod of where that bullet came from. From the front towards the back, the right to the left. He then fires one more. I said, drive. That bullet is the one there. And after he'd already shot out the back window, now she's scared as hell. I've got to get out of this car. She's opening the door. That car is still creeping along. She's opening the door. She's trying to get out of the car. She wants away from this situation. That's what happened. That's why the car door was open. Where do you think you're going? Something to that effect is probably what happened. You're not going anywhere. Sit back down. Something like that's what I submit to you happened. That's the shot through the seat that hits her leg, through the seat, and fell out of that open car door that she'd already opened because she was trying to get out of the car and away from him. And that bullet goes through that seat. It's under the seat, falls out the open door that she'd already opened, and it's sitting out there in the emergency lane. That's what happened with that bullet. That's why that's sitting there. Now she's been shot a bit. He's already shot the gun twice. That car continues to roll. I submit to you there's some sort of struggle for the next 70 feet. He says himself in the interview that it wasn't completely in park. You know, he kind of had to finish putting it in park himself. That car was finally put in the park. And I submit to you there was some sort of struggle, tussle, something. She's still trying to get out of that car. It did not last very long. But once that car is stopped, that's what happened. There was some sort of continued words and struggle of her trying to get out of that car while it was rolling for the next 70 feet. She was unable to get out of the car, unfortunately. That's where these next 4 shots come in. And again, we're going to go back to what we talked about and what the medical examiner testified as to what could happen as the flight path, these bullets and where they went and that sort of thing. You heard her say that the one on her thigh could have looked like it came from one direction, but if someone was perhaps twisted or turned like to the left, that could cause that same mark, that same injury. So I submit to you that's what happened. She was in that driver's seat. He shot one out the back. He shot that one. Once she starts to turn, he shoots that one. It goes to the leg, to the seat, falls out. He's now struck her one time.
Mr. Larson, you can take that microphone out if you want to.
Okay.
You can go move.
That's the second bullet. Okay. So the warning shot bullet, we're going to call that one. Now she's really, really scared. She's trying to get out of that car. That's when she opens the door. She's trying to get out. And it's something to the effect of, where are you going? Sit back down, something. He fires a second shot through the seat that hits her, but she's already turned trying to get out of the car with the open door. That's why that bullet, that mark, that injury looks the way it does. Y'all heard the medical examiner say that. Then the next 4 are all on the right torso. We saw that. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And y'all heard the medical examiner, the one down here, just below her belly button and such. That one also came in at an angle as well. So these come in an angle on the right side. And then this one here also kind of came in at a funny angle, as if someone was turning. And again, I gave her the hypothetical question. If someone was turned like this and it went through her arm, 1, 2, and 3, into those locations, 1, 2, and 3, she said, yes. I mean, that could very well be as to why entrance, 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 and have those 8 entrance wounds. Because that's it. That's what she looked like at the moment she was shot. The next 4, the fatal wounds, she was turned and had her arm like this. He shot her 1, 2, 3, 4 times there. 3 of those going through her arm into her torso. She was turned away from him, trying to turn away from him, getting away from him. There's somewhere to point a gun, and your reaction is to draw back and put your arm up next to you, going towards that door, not towards him. We heard that. This was not my hands up, I'm trying to strike you. No, because bullet goes straight through somewhere else. It doesn't. It's not it. It was up against her. She was trying to get out of the car, trying to get away from Mr. Miles. But he decided that, again, Had to shoot her 1, 2, 3, 4 more times after he already shot through the seat and hit her leg that time. He was still in reasonable fear for his life. Imminent threat to him, I guess, supposedly. So that's what I submit to you actually happened. It's not as he says. And again, we'll go back to that. If it's exactly as he says, it's still a murder. There's an unarmed woman at that time. Now, he could be mad. He could have taken the gun and say, you sit your ass down. I'm calling the cops. You pointed a gun at me. You stay right there. They're on their way. He called 911. He knew how to do it. They could have been up there within a few minutes. This lady just, committed assault on me. She had a gun or something, and I've got her. I'm holding her here. He didn't do any of that. He decided he'd just shoot her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Again, according to him. So remember that. According to his own mouth, his own words in the interview, what he says happened, it's still murder. But again, we're going to leave that one alone because I submit to you the evidence does not show that. The evidence shows exactly what I said. And while we're talking about what the evidence shows, let's remember one more thing. We heard from the expert, Ms. Haas, and the fingerprints. That gun was checked all over for fingerprints. Not a single fingerprint on the outside of that gun. But they did collect one fingerprint on the magazine. That was his fingerprint, not hers, his. So all this, I heard the click clack and putting the magazine in, and she had the pistol. I heard earlier down in Brunswick that, the magazine was separate from the pistol. So either he put the magazine in the pistol with his fingerprint on it. She didn't put the magazine back in the pistol. That was all him. He put it back in the pistol. There's not a fingerprint of hers anywhere on that gun on the magazine. Not on the cartridge. The cartridges were tested. She hadn't fiddled with those at all either. Nothing. Not a thing. He's the only one that's linked to holding that firearm at all. So again, that's all we're going to talk about because that's what happened. It's not what he says happened. What actually happened. So when we talk about, again, the interview, it was asked, so what made you feel like you had to shoot her? He's admitting to shooting, but they said, what made you feel like you had to shoot her? In his words, I was just so mad. I was just so motherfucking mad. I was trying to get out of the car myself. I had the gun. I was trying to get out of the passenger door and went off accidentally 5 times. Nothing like that. I was just so mad. And again, remember how you say he took the weapon and changed it around in his hand and flipped it and all this and got it in his right hand. I submit to you, if somebody's pointing a gun at you, you're able to get it away from them. Either you get away from the whole situation, or if for some reason you reasonable fear of imminent bodily injury or death, I submit to you, no one reasonable will worry about which hand the gun's in and flipping it around and all this kind of stuff. You get away from the person, or somebody's just trying to shoot back whatever hand they've got their gun on. We're not going to flip it around and get a better angle on it, this sort of thing.
I don't believe that either. That's too much. That's too far for me.
It just didn't happen the way he says it happened. The evidence doesn't show it. None of the forensic stuff lines up with it. It just didn't happen that way. And one last thing I want y'all to remember. We heard from Nurse Betty Evans, who works over at the jail. We all heard what Nurse Betty said that Mr. Miles stated.
Oh, I heard her all right.
I'm not going to call Miss Moody what he called her in his statement to Nurse Betty, but paraphrasing him saying, I should have shot her in another county. Should have shot that B word in another county. Well, think about this one again. You all got common sense. Again, think about this. If someone, say, defending themselves from someone's an imminent bodily threat, death, serious bodily injury, do you pick the county to defend yourself in? No. You pick the county to shoot somebody in yourself. You don't pick the county to defend yourself in.
I don't believe that is a factor at all either. I think he was just saying words while he was in jail and he was mad. I don't think that it means what he says it means. It's too far of a jump.
So I ask y'all to think about that one as well. I submit to you, I've proven this case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the malice murder. I submit to you that the evidence shows as to what really happened. Everything links up and shows that beyond a reasonable doubt. This thing was stewing and brewing. It had been going on for a while before this time. It went on the hours on the way back up here. It reached a boiling point, and he was just so motherfucking mad is what happened. He had that pistol. He'd had enough of everything. He gave a warning shot. She was trying to get out of the car, opened the door, twisted to turn out. He fired one more through the seat, hitting her leg. That bullet came out there on the road. And then he proceeded, zero justification, to shoot her 4 more times in the torso, striking her aorta and these different areas that you heard the doctor say cause loss of blood and unfortunately caused her to die. I submit to you that's what actually happened. I ask you to go back and find a verdict of guilty beyond a reasonable doubt for Mr. Miles' malice murder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. That's a good job. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you are now considering the case of the state of Georgia versus Tevin Alexander Miles. The grand jury has indicted the defendant with the offense of malice murder. The indictment reads as follows. Count 1, in the name and on behalf of the citizens of Georgia charged and accused, Tevin Alexander Miles, with the offense of malice murder. For that the said Tevin Alexander Miles and the Twigs in Twigs County, Georgia on the 21st day of November 2021 did unlawfully, with malice aforethought, cause the death of Tykeara Moody, a human being, by shooting her contrary to the laws of said state, the good order, peace, and dignity thereof. The defendant has entered a plea of not guilty to this indictment. The indictment and the plea form the issue that you are to decide. Neither the indictment nor the plea of guilty should be considered as evidence. The defendant is...
So I didn't leave all of this in because time is running out. The good part where he talks more and the judge slaps him down is we're close. We're very, very close.
Presumed to be innocent until proven guilty.
That's as much as you needed to hear. Trust me. They go through all the jury rules and everything. It's just such a pain. You know the jury rules by now. So now they're handing the verdict. They just handed the verdict to the judge. And he is the sheriff that's with him. And he's going to show him and his counsel the verdict. Now, when the jury comes in, when the jury gets pulled, right now they're going to pull the jury. And they're going to ask the jury, was that your vote? Is that still your vote? Was that your vote? Is it still your vote? I think I got the first guy the same question that the judge is about to ask this first guy, he asks to every single one individually. I did not keep in all of them individually. The judge has it muted. He will unmute in a moment, any moment now. Right now, I think he's saying, that it's the verdict is guilty, and then he's asking them if they want to pull the jury. And I don't know why it's muted. I don't think he forgot. I think this is on purpose. I also, after the verdict is read out loud, the jurors are pulled, and then the jury leaves. The victim's impact statements, the family that you see sort of right here, all of them get up and talk. I did not include that either. I can put that in on the Patreon, but I did not include that. I just hear the verdict and the judge talking to him now.
Yeah.
Okay. Madam Clerk, you got the roll? Please call the roll for me.
Charles Long,
Mr. Long, I'm sorry, I forgot to give you all instructions. What I'd ask you to do is stand up and I'm going to ask you 3 questions and you just answer them, okay? Mr. Long, was that your verdict in the jury room? Was it freely and voluntarily made by you? Is it still your verdict? Thank you. We'll find a way to make that work for you. And you are released with my thanks. If you need to go back out the way you came in, the bailiff will make sure that you have access to and can do whatever you need. Or if you have all your stuff, you can leave out the back of the courtroom and down through the bottom floor, okay? Again, thank you all for your service. Yeah, well, make sure you leave your notepads. We're going to destroy those notes. And if you'll make sure you give the bailiff your badge on the way out, that would be extremely helpful.
Your Honor, did you want the evidence back?
I mean, she's gonna need it.
Yeah.
Will you collect all that stuff for us? And
He's going to need it. He's talking about standby counsel because he's already thinking about his appeal. And then he's already thinking about his habeas.
bring it back.
I sure will.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Did Patty go downstairs? Kind of need her.
Miss Patty went to her office, Your Honor.
Oh, I see no reason to delay sentencing in this matter.
And that makes no sense. You had the opportunity to avoid this outcome. You were
I left just the last little bit of the last person, just so that you can see what just happened.
absolutely a coward and a bully. No one deserves what you did to Tykeria. Not once when you shared what happened. Did you cry, show emotion, hang your head, even sigh? You told it as if you're writing a story and you're telling somebody. No emotion whatsoever, yet you said this was your girlfriend. So today, I can just say you will no longer be able to besmirch her name, lie about what happened. Nothing can bring her back. But I pray that the justice that prevailed today gives you something to think about and gives our family a small sense of relief. This made no sense at all. She had so much more life to live. You did not have the right to take that away. She was only guilty of selecting the wrong man to love. So you live with that.
Family, do we have any additional impact statements? All right. Having heard all that, Mr. Miles, do you have anything to say before I pass judgment? I'll give you one additional opportunity.
Oh, he got to talk now, guys.
One day I will be able to relay the truth to y'all, but not now. I don't have proper representation. I don't have proper means for y'all to know the truth. but it's not what was expressed here today by the state.
All right, well, you've been found guilty.
Y'all don't know anything about me. Y'all don't know anything about those last 4 or 5 months, what Takira was going through. I was there with her.
All right, that's enough.
The truth. And I know you feel some type of way.
Hey, I said that's enough.
I understand.
Say another word.
Where's your sorry? Where's your remorse?
Ma'am, family, this is about to end. Mr. Miles, as I properly advised you, at the end of this process, I had a decision to make because I got 2 options, but you've just made my option very easy for me. Okay? You've been found guilty by a jury of your peers. You've shown absolutely no remorse. When you had a decision to not end her life, you chose wrong. There was no threat to you. She was a small woman. You're a big man, young, healthy, and you had the gun in your hand, and you chose wrong. What you have said here about y'all don't know what happened or whatever, dude, there's one car, you're both in it, there was one gun, she shot 5 times and is dead, okay? And the jury of your peers,
You look like you said she.
she is dead.
No, you said she shot 5 times.
She was shot. She was shot. You have a hard time getting a grasp on the truth about things that are just facts, okay? You attacking all this evidence and saying that it's false and all that. You had the opportunity to address those items, Mr. Miles, and you just utterly disregarded your opportunity to do that, okay? In the process that's set up in the court of law. I'm not asking you to give me anything else. I'm not asking you to give me anything else, okay? Okay. Well, Mr. Miles, this defiance, this attitude that I think you have is probably the very reason why you, okay. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Mr. Miles, I'm sitting.
Okay, here we go. We are going to get something we never, ever get, ever, ever. Ready?
Sentencing you to life imprisonment without the chance of parole. You will spend the rest of your natural life with the Board of Corrections. That is the sentence of this court. If you wish to appeal me, you have 30 days within which to do that. If you wish to file a writ of habeas corpus challenging the legality of these proceedings, because this is a felony, you have 4 years within which to file such a petition. You are now remanded to the custody of the Department of Corrections. If you attempt to escape, you will subject yourself to additional felony prosecutions.
Who cares? He got life with no parole. What else are you going to give him? Additional years? Okay, go ahead. Go, escape, buddy. The family wants you to try to escape. They're waiting for you to escape.
For the escape, you are sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
Would I have
I don't know.
to make that deal?
I'm not your lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice. That's my order and that's my sentence. Take him into custody.
He goes with you. You may now leave the booth. Listen to what the judge says.
Put him on the road.
Put him on the road. Put him on the road. Now, I know we had this judge before for trials. I think we had it for, though, custody or parenting. I don't think it was a murder trial. But I like this judge. However, he was not in this courtroom the last time we had him. He was in, I think the walls were white. I know these walls are white. Anyway, he was in a different courtroom. This courtroom right here, Twiggs County, is so hard to get because they never, ever, ever stream. So they were on, yes, 2 days ago. I didn't know they were on. And then lo and behold, I looked yesterday and they're streaming day 2 of the trial. But since he wasn't talking at all, I thought it would be lovely to watch. I'm not going to be in chat to know if it's crickets and boring. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I saw the whole thing of all the boring parts, the good parts. So anyway, if you are on trial for murder, please get a lawyer. Any lawyer, small claims lawyer, workers' comp lawyer. I don't care. Get a lawyer, any lawyer. All right, guys. Oh, sugar. Okay, I gotta go. I gotta get going right now. I gotta set this up and get out of here. Love ya. See you soon, guys. Thank you so much for coming out. Bye, guys.